about you go to the altar to die to yourself. But what does that mean?
We came to that realization that you were chasing an idol. In that time, and we've had to make a course.
That I felt a responsibility, particularly as a black man. Like I said, my uncle passed in '93. I was in my early teens, to take the baton and run with it.
They cannot tell me nothing, baby, the way you walk, I love it. And if you take too long, I'm rushing. I come the way you are, just trust it. Then we gon' love forever, and we gon' ride this thing together. I got my mind on you whenever, I keep my eyes on you forever. Man, we got the kind of love that says for worse or better. And we got the kind of love that lasts the stormy weather.
Welcome to Progress Podcast. My name is Selah, and I am joined by my man, Russell Fugett.
What's up, babe?
If you hate that, we don't have to.
I know. I don't. Did I miss a TikTok somewhere? That's all I'm wondering. Is did I miss an Instagram trend?
It's like my man. It's all about like my man.
Okay. Well,
so yeah, you did. You missed that.
This podcast is not all about me.
No, it's not all about you. But I'm so happy to be doing this.
Likewise. So welcome back. Like Selah just so wonderfully said, to the Progress Podcast. We want to dive deep into the heart of marriage, love, relationships, and be your guide on the journey where we know there can be healing in marriage, there can be restoration, there's certainly growth in the marriage journey. So we want to be your guides on this journey. So thank you so much for locking in. I hope you liked the first episode. Thanks for coming back. If you're just discovering this space, welcome. Thank you for listening wherever you might get the podcast, YouTube, all the audio platforms. If you're an audiophile like I tend to be, we're happy to have you here. And I want to start out by, if I may, point of privilege, start out by thanking our creative team. Yes. First, I want to thank Demont Pender, who made the art for our podcast, which you see behind me. Thank you, brother. Certainly look out for Pender's story. Follow him. I know we have his hat over here. I don't know if it's on camera all the time on your shot, but we really thank you for your genius, right? I could elaborate, spend the whole half hour just talking about him. Maybe one day we'll have him here to talk about his journey, his family, which is a beautiful family. Shout out. And then also want to thank Jay Turner, who's designed the logo for myprogresscoach.com. Brilliant. He actually has, coincidentally, Jay used to go to church with us. It's been someone we've walked down life with together. And he's now moved out of state, but he's done work with Tim in the B-side. So, grateful that he's part of our team. And then also want to thank Antoine Emerson as well for his creative genius and branding to help. We've worked with him for the last year to get hone this just right for you. But without further ado, I want to introduce the man who's here in the room with us, right? Our producer, Mr. Sony Pierre. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Sony.
For believing in this project, for being a part of it, for making the trip to be here to record in our home. And we've been connecting for the last 6 months or so now. And this is beautiful, man. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your direction, your vision of making this happen.
So we are passionate about being an example in our speech, in our love, in our faith, in our conduct. And that's kind of why we decided to do this podcast, was to share in this season, life, environment where everyone's putting out their curated reels and their perfect highlights. We are uniquely different. We are not afraid to share the raw and the real, the challenging that we have been through. And we share that in hopes that it'll help others and give you hope and faith that you can survive some of these tough seasons also. So we're diving in today. I think we're going to start with a verse.
Yeah, Galatians. I got to pull it up. You call me when I wasn't prepared.
Okay.
With my Bible, but
You're not texting your girlfriend, right? You're reading the Bible off?
No, I'm not texting my shorty. No. It's past those girls' bedtime anyway.
Yes, that's true.
Talking about our daughters, by the way, just to be clear, just to be very clear, talking about our daughters. So we're in Galatians 5:24-26. Now those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. So that's Galatians 5:24-26.
That's good. So what are we jumping in today?
Oh, man, we're jumping into dying to self in marriage. And kind of tangential to that, what do we wish we knew before we got married? So that's where we're going today.
We start with you. What do you wish you knew before getting married?
Hold on real quick.
Okay.
Dying to self, right there. Some people with no biblical background Can you help some folks out there?
Yeah. So when you get married, you cease becoming an individual per se. Of course, I'm Russell, she's Selah, right? But really, it's a union of two people in a covenant, which, a covenant is a relationship that's governed by a set of rules and precepts. And as in the covenant, two become one through Christ. And really, you are inviting Christ to be the center, the third partner in that relationship.
Dying to yourself also kind of looks like when you get married, you go to an altar.
Right.
And when you're going to that altar, you're dying to yourself, and two are becoming one. So that's to talk about like what that tangibly looks like in a marriage.
And we've really just, I think, come to this revelation in the last couple of years, right, of our marriage. Yeah. We didn't have the greatest premarital counseling. And we've learned as we've begun this journey of progress in recent years, and over the years, we've learned that so many people either didn't think about coaching or counseling, and, get a coach, get a counselor, right? Didn't think about or weren't even aware that was something they're going to pay $50,000 for a wedding or what have you, or a lot more in some cases. We've been to some big weddings.
44 to 50.
Right. Yeah. We've been to a few $1 million. We've been to some throwdown, like we're going to eat until we can't eat no more and dance till we can't dance no more and other things. But
so much emphasis sometimes is put on
the event,
the wedding, the day, the dress, the food, the this, and then you're married. And a month later, all them people aren't there and all that activity. And you're like, what do we do now? And you're going through the challenges of life.
Yeah, and we talked about those challenges in the first episode of Coming Out the Wilderness. And so, really having that foundation, that clarity, having someone that can help you ask questions you may be afraid to ask. But even more than that, we just didn't know to ask, right?
There's a lot I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't. It never occurred to me. And so, at least, in my case, coming from my parents were divorced when I was young and grew up kind of in a blended family situation. And so, didn't have it modeled day in and day out. Didn't know what it looked like day in and day out. And I know you had a different experience, 1 or 5 kids. And
5. My parents were married 50 years.
Right.
Even though I did have mom and dad in the home and marriage modeled, there was no one sitting around guiding us and teaching us. And life has progressed. Things are so different now than when my parents did things anyways. They wouldn't really know how to guide us through some of the situations we deal with today because they didn't have to deal with it. It's a different time.
Yeah, very different time. Parenting is certainly very different now. Being married in the age of digital social media is very different now. So much more coming at you than there were,
So back to
a while ago.
my question.
Yeah, okay.
What did you wish that you had knew before getting married?
Well, I think I wish that I knew that I had to, and I wish I had help to be able to really put my business on the altar, right? To be able to truly understand the concept we just talked about you go to the altar to die to yourself. But what does that mean? So it's easy to say die to yourself. It's easy to say you're going to sacrifice your own ambition, your own desires that are solely yours to truly come into union with another person, another person, and create a oneness about that vision, a oneness about that desire, oneness around those dreams. And the one thing we talk about regularly, we try to, is like, let's dream about something. Let's make a big plan. If we can't afford it, can't do it right now, don't have time to do it one day, let's have a dream, but let's do it together, right? If I'm going in one direction, you're going in another, we're not going to go anywhere. And we existed in that space for a good part of our marriage, and I wish I had known better. And so our heart is certainly to see other couples know better and be able to do better with help, with community, to go in a direction that allows you to make the sacrifices. Because I think we said this last week, when you give something up at the altar, right, it is a sacrifice. Don't get me wrong, but God gives you so much back in return, and that's the blessing. And it feels hard, right, in the beginning, but there's so much of a reward and a richness that comes. Not, I say richness, not just financial. We always may go to that, but a richness in spirit, a richness in peace, of love, of joy, and of understanding that really is eternal. Truly is. So that's what I wish I had understood more deeply, and I believe I understand now. I'm probably in some ways still growing to understand what that looks like, because you have to live it out every day. Yeah.
I wish I would have known how challenging it was to be married to an entrepreneur. And like, I went into it with the thought of this is going to be fun and you make your own schedule. And with the history of your family and with all of the network and all of the opportunities that have been given to you, it was just like, oh, of course he's going to be an incredibly successful entrepreneur. And when that was not happening, it was really hard to manage. And with you being so set on that's what you were going to do, and there was no way for me to move you, there was some difficult times in that where I felt hopeless and I felt resentment, and I just confused, not knowing what to do, what else I could do.
Right. You didn't know what to do with it. And I didn't have the maturity to recognize it. All I knew was to do was to keep going and to keep trying, right?
And something was eventually going to work out.
Yeah. And there's so much of an ethos of that in the entrepreneurial community. But there's a cost to that. And, I've certainly found more articles and places on Forbes magazine and other publications have talked about the mental health cost. Because for every, Elon Musk and every Mark Zuckerberg, there's people you never hear about who've lost everything, who've sacrificed their health, their physical health, their mental health, their spiritual health, their family, with not a whole lot, without the headlines and the bank account to show for it. And so, I wish I had learned that lesson sooner, to focus on what God tells us to focus on, which focus on Him. And that's been the shift coming out the wilderness, going back to last week, that we've had to make, and I've had to make, and it's probably some ways I'm still adjusting to, right? Because it's still new.
You mentioned a minute ago, what was the cost of pursuing your journey, your entrepreneurial dream for so long? What did that cost you, or what did it cost us in your eyes?
I think it caused our marriage to be stagnant in certain ways. Certainly we're stagnant financially. I know you will say, you'll be the first one to say that.
Well,
obviously we're blessed. Like we've never missed a meal. Our kids are blessed to go amazing school, and like we've had everything we need. We certainly have not had everything we want. We've had everything we need, and are blessed to have had a lot of great experiences, memories, etc. But we certainly have been stagnant, right, in that way. But I think perhaps, I would say that even perhaps more importantly than that, we've been stagnant in our dreaming. We've been stagnant in having unity around our planning. So last week you mentioned like how I got into like creating PowerPoints and like setting the tone for the year. Like that's just come about in the last 2 years. I'm like, okay, I got to really take the lead of this family and cast a vision that's not just my own. And for so long, I was just myopically focused on trying to get this business to work. And when I get this business to work, when I make that first million and can do some things, then I'll stop and then I'll shift my focus to different things. But I had to do this first. And I spent like the first, certainly the first 5 or 6 years of our marriage, and even beyond that, COVID disrupted that's a whole other episode. But I spent a lot of time saying, I got to achieve this first because nothing else really mattered. I had to have this level of success as defined by the world. I was taught nothing sells like success, and I wanted something to sell. And so I had to let that die. That had to be pruned in this last season of coming out the wilderness to be able to sit here and tell this story to you. And so that's really what it's been. And it's been painful, but it's been also refreshing at the same time to be able to see it for what it is and to say, okay, God, I give up. I tried it my way in my own strength for so long. I can't make this family what you want it to be. God, what do you want it to be? And then be yielded to that.
Where do you think that ego comes from for a lot of men? Because you guys are coaching me and my wife, and everything that you're saying, it's home for me. So it's like, where do you think that ego or that thought process or that drive stems from? Because I see that a lot in the entrepreneurial.
I think in some ways we're hardwired as men to compete, to have a prove it mentality, and sometimes not even just to prove it to somebody else, but to prove it to ourselves. But I think we also have a desire, and of course, in our culture right now on social media and in television, et cetera, again, the entrepreneur is celebrated because, freedom, wealth, control, fame, like so many things that are of the world are really promoted as that's there for you if you can just figure out how to be your own man. And it's really, I think the spirit of the age, I think it's really a reflection of the man's biggest weakness, which is our pride. I think pride is really the biggest thing that we have to overcome to really have clarity as to who we are, who God called us to be, and then walk in that, as opposed to walking in what another man might have said, or walking because we want to compete, or walking out of a sense of I have to prove something to myself, or even operating out of a spirit of lack. And I'm going to be very careful with that. I'm blessed to not have grown up with lack, right? But I know for a lot of men, a lot of black men, let's be real, like I've grown up with lack and got to prove it. Now to the extent was my uncle's story.
Share that because you haven't shared that yet. I think it would be interesting to give the people some context around that because saying I wanted to make my first million is like, okay,
yeah, right.
But you have to give context to why that was instilled in you.
So I grew up around it, and it's I always don't want to lean.
He doesn't love telling the story.
I do and I don't. It's a double-edged sword.
It's such a double-edged sword.
But it's my story. So I'm the nephew of Reginald F. Lewis, who passed away at age 50 in 1993, and he's considered by many as the first black billionaire. It's not entirely accurate, and when I try to correct people, she gets mad at me. I'm like, he had $1 billion company, but he wasn't a billionaire himself, but he did very well. Let's just say, right? And
the first black man
to have $1 billion, first black man period to have $1 billion company.
And the first black man on Wall Street.
Yeah. Did the largest offshore leverage buyout. You can go to Reginald F. Lewis.
He was like a global entrepreneur before that was the real.
Before that was a term, yeah. He passed in '93. He did his big deal. His biggest deal was almost $1 billion deal in 1987. He owned one of the 3 largest food companies in the world. My father was right there with him throughout most of it in the management team, and so I got a front row seat to that, right? But I grew up in a family that, like, 5 of my 8 great grandparents had advanced degrees, like. So a lot of education. My great-great-grandfather escaped slavery, has a U.S. patent. I got in the hallway here in our home in 1888, right? He sent all 6 of his kids to college, including his youngest, who's my namesake, went to Cornell, has a school. Shout out Joseph R. Fugett Middle School in Westchester, Pennsylvania. I get the chance to go speak there. I mean, I could go on, and my mom's side of my dad played 8 seasons in the National Football League, had his own law firm. There's a number of judges here in Maryland who my dad trained. He represented athletes. I have a whole Jerry Jones, Dallas Cowboy story.
Okay,
Stop me. Yeah. It's a lot. So it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Thanks for stopping me.
I'm stopping you.
No, I need you to stop me, but I don't. So all this to say, I don't know if do all.
Life.
It's real.
And to other people, it's like Russell's bragging. Well, then Russell should just maybe not share about his life. But it has been a challenge. But he didn't get to choose this. He didn't get to choose.
But I saw a lot. I learned a lot. Even when I didn't know, I was learning a lot. At young age, like we did,
like your kitchen table talks for business.
Yeah, was negotiations.
Yeah,
my parents.
You with Jerry Jones.
Well, he did. That's why I brought that up. My dad had me on the phone with Jerry Jones. I was 13 years old, and my dad had me on the phone, not by myself, but I was on the call, and I remember it vividly. He said, "Hello, little fella." That's all. It was pretty funny. This is my life. It was reality. So $1 million is like a starting point, like for what I thought to do. But I think the takeaway from all this, I think for you, is that I felt a responsibility, particularly as a black man, because like I said, my uncle passed in '93. I was in my early teens, to take the baton and run with it. Right. So success and the concept of success has shaped me as a black American with education. That success is what matters, and it's important for us to succeed and overcome. And I think that just drove me to think that was the only direction I could go in to get the validation that I saw. Going back to your question, Sony, I think it caused me to focus on all the wrong things. And it might have been okay when I was single, but then when I was married, I didn't adjust course. I didn't know how to, or didn't know I should put that down. At least to say, let's talk about it. What's our vision to what to do with this, what is amazing family legacy that I still feel a responsibility to. And I've been blessed to speak and be in rooms where it's encouraged and inspires people to this day. And you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
And you've seen it more importantly in recent years, how God has used it in a new way. And we're still getting used to that and what to do with that, how to be generous with that, and how to encourage and love people with that. And blessed to kind of understand how all that background I just vomited on. I'm sorry. It's hard. Sorry. But how it is allowing me to have grace to show up in certain places and be humble and just be Russell. Because I've always just wanted to be Russell. I didn't want to be Gene's son who played in the NFL. I didn't want to be Uncle Reggie's nephew, right? I wanted to always be Russell, and that's been a part of it too. So figuring out my own identity, making my own path is also, again, back to your question, Sony, has been also part of it. I think for all of us as men, we want to have our own path. We want someone to be proud of us. And so, but my standard was it was unattainable. Let's just call it what it was, unattainable. Yeah, it was certainly an idol. No, it wasn't a little bit. It was an idol.
Money, success, all of that was your idol. And as we talked about, like in previous episode about there's so much health in unpacking.
Right.
In our last
yeah.
There's so much health in in us spending time together and unpacking things. And we really came to that realization that you were chasing an idol in that time. And we've had to make a course correction.
Yeah, we definitely have. And so, I mean, that's the story in a nutshell. A lot more I could share, and maybe, we'll come back another time. But that was enough. That was more than enough. So thank you for bearing with me. But thank you for asking about that. What's where we're going next?
Where you want to go, sir?
I mean, what was it been like for you? You started out today talking about being married to an entrepreneur, what your expectations were. What's been your reality?
Oof. I didn't realize it would be this hard. I really didn't. And I didn't realize that you wouldn't. I didn't realize it would take this long for you to realize it wasn't working. If I can just be honest, I did not realize it would take you that long.
I'm stubborn. I'm determined.
And there were times that I felt completely defeated, that you weren't going to get off of this dream, this idol, and I didn't know how to move you from that. And to be honest, I started resenting you and had frustration towards you. And what helped with that was praying for you and asking God to help me see you through His eyes, because it was very challenging at times. And it's like people think, oh, well, whatever, it's challenging, but finances, that part was really hard. When finances weren't as they should be, or business wasn't growing. I do believe God created me to be your wife and to be an entrepreneur's wife. And I believe I was created for this. And we've just been learning these lessons, going through to get to this point. But I'm thankful that we had to go through that, because if I didn't start speaking to you, like we talked about previously, if I didn't start sharing and saying the hard things, you might not have been able to get here. If I just kept presenting you and being mad at you,
True,
we might not be here right now.
Yeah.
So
like I said, listening to Tim's podcast helped a lot of people, help other friends. Some of the names I just named to start this episode helped me in the work through all this, right? And so, but you could ask me, you're not going to ask me the same question?
What was the question?
What's it like to be married to an entrepreneur? See, so the point I want to make is that what we've had to do in our marriage is level each other out. She's had to pull me down to earth, and I've had to pull her up, because this woman has run a $5 million multi-location business in the state of Maryland before. I ain't never run $5 million in anything. Be real. Like, I've been around it. I read the paperwork that my uncle did and my dad did. I've read all the deals, the brief. I've seen a lot, but I know I have a lot of knowledge. But she's done it. But I've had to remind her of that and pull out of her all these things. She has all these experiences in church and leadership and serving. I've had to pull that out. Where I didn't know you did all that. So she's had to temper me down, and I've had to bring her up, because she's a brilliant entrepreneur. And together, we've learned in this season, we make a unique team. And that's been like a little bit of a scary thing, because
I feel like if we would have figured this out sooner.
Right, there you go.
We could have been, we're going to be dangerous now.
Right.
We had to go
in a good way.
That because we really are meant to work together.
Yeah.
We are brilliant when we work together.
Yeah.
Like, we are a team. We do most of our work together. We consult together. We do paraministry together.
Right.
We do coaching together. We do a lot of things, and we are powerful, because the truth is, Russell has skills that I don't have. I have skills that you don't have.
Right.
It's not the greatest administratively, but he's the word man. He got a word for everything. And I'm like brain dead half the time and can't even come up with my own sentence. So it's really amazing when we put ourselves together and build something. I'm having a lot of fun building with you.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no...
So for me, like, even just doing this, let's just be real, like, this is certainly a very entrepreneurial effort. My progresscoach.com is like, okay, we're doing entrepreneurship again. Of course, this time is different because my wife is my full partner in it, but it's still like, okay, I'm doing this again, God. This needs to work this time because it hasn't quite worked before. But then for you, it's like, I've worked in dentistry for almost 30 years, and I've never done this before. So, like, we're coming at our insecurity and fear from a different direction, and that's been part of interesting journeys. So this give you guys a little insight into, like, this is real, like, where we are. Literally having this conversation right now for you, like, we're living this out in this way and seeing that.
We said we were going to be raw, real, vulnerable.
Yeah,
Here we go.
God's doing a new thing, and here it is. Like, so we're being obedient to what we believe God's called us to do, and God's truly done miracles. I'm sitting next to a miracle. And if you go back and listen to earlier podcasts to get that story, or we'll talk about it more too, like literally a miracle in so many ways. And so like in a lot of ways for us from the beginning of this very year, even when you were sick, like this is a miracle that we're here, we're having this moment right now. And so we know what God can do. We're living it. And so we want more people to be able to live it too. And that's what we feel called to do. So I had to bring you in. You can't just let me be the only entrepreneur around here,
Right.
because you got it.
I am.
You got it. Yeah.
I was building for others.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't building for us.
Right.
And I was giving my gift to others. And in our last episode, we talked about our wilderness season. And like, that's one thing that I really have come to realize in this season is that I'm called to build something for us. We're called to be builders, kingdom builders. We've helped build a big part of building our church. We are builders. And so I had to step away from building for someone else to build for us and to build for God's kingdom. So I'm super excited.
And real quick, going back to your question, Sony, I'm still sitting with that question. T.D. Jakes had a great sermon 3 years ago, talk about men are builders and we're in the building season. And that a few years ago, even that resonated with me. And I felt that one. Like, I think that's part of it too. Men are builders. And I think sometimes we look around, if we don't see an opportunity to build, if it's not a career track or we couldn't get the education, we're going to work. We're going to create our own thing and be builders. There's nothing wrong with that, but we got to submit to God. We got to submit, again, submit to our marriage, right? Submit to the union to make sure it's properly aligned and that you're able to walk it out in good health for yourself, in good health for your family, your finances, everything, and make sure you have your life truly in order, your priorities in order.
So back to dying to self.
Yes.
We talked about two becoming one at the altar. So what are some like tangible ways that people can, die to themselves? I know it does require a level of selfless, unconditional love to even be willing.
Yeah.
But do you have any?
I think certainly, sacrificing, your preferences for a lot of things. And, it's been a challenge, certainly, more or less coming up as an only child and one of five. Like, there's a lot of things just in the day-to-day that you could imagine that make that kind of family life culture clash a little bit interesting. But really being able to understand that, certainly like working through and being able to be a patient listening ear, right? I think truly, having the level of patience, and we'll probably our encouragement will touch on that, but being able to really understand what it requires. I think so many people get to the altar and it's like, we've seen the movies Happily Ever After. And really you're just beginning a journey. You're really just beginning and you're really having the tools to be able to have the conversation, the right perspective to be able to take that journey, because it's not always going to be fun and easy. A lot of times it will not be. So really understanding what that's going to require to be able to honor the covenant and those vows you made in front of your family and your friends. Yeah.
That's good. One of the things that I have in dying to myself, there's a lot. Let's talk about my preferences and what I think I deserve and what all the things, because that's definitely, as a woman, we come into it of like, well, I deserve this and I deserve that. And there's a lot of that. And I had to overcome that. Right. And it took a lot of work for me. But another thing that dying to self, a lot of people don't think of this as dying to self, but it really is being a covering for your husband, being a protector for your spouse. And when I talk about covering, I'm not talking about covering up sins or covering up dysfunction or covering up poor behavior. I'm talking about covering in a way of praying for them, thinking about their day, going ahead of them, and just the smallest gesture or the smallest need is really powerful. And that is something that I intentionally do with you. And sometimes it even looks like filling in the gaps when I know you're not the best at something. It's not something he loves doing. Sometimes in our Sunday night meetings, we have meetings once a week and we go through our week. I'll be like, what can I help? What can we take off? What can I assist with if it's something he doesn't love? So just really dying to yourself to saying, you know what? It's not about me all the time. What can I do for you? How can I be thinking about you? And where he doesn't have to ask, I'm already covering him and going ahead of it. So
yeah, you see it. And I think, so, one of the, here's a cheat code for you. Like one of the first prayers I prayed when I got to know you was like, God, help me to see her as you see her. And that's a powerful prayer. I encourage you to pray that pray that to God about your spouse. God, help me to see, I pray that for my children. God, help me to see them as you see them. Because if I see them that way, I'll understand how you made them and I'll understand how to steward the gift that is my spouse. I'll understand how to steward the gift that is my children. I pray that about my friends. God, help me who ask for advice or who needs encouragement. What's the encouragement? Help me to see. And so I think really praying those prayers and sitting with it and asking God to show you and seeking to listen and gain understanding first before you just get frustrated with your spouse. There's some things, I think I've come to the realization there's some things about you, and I think some things about me that may never change, that still may be like minor agitation. But I also think there's some things that will change over time if I love you the right way, if I seek to serve you in the right way. And so I think that's part of the journey. And I think we come into marriage so selfishly focused sometimes. And I know selfish is a harsh word, but like you were saying earlier, what am I going to get?
What am I going to get?
Right. And like I've said before, everyone gets into marriage with their deal, and I think a lot of people approach it like that. And in some ways, obviously setting yourself up financially and structuring things in certain ways is important, but really focusing on what's your eternal deal going to be before God. Right? What's your eternal deal? Right. So, what's your focus? So sure, all these things in this world are dying away, but what's your eternal focus going to be? To steward this other soul, this other child of God well, and other human beings you may bring into the world as a result of that, right? So that's the end of my sermon for today.
Thanks for
coming to my sermon. Mini sermon.
I want to talk about our coaching program.
All right.
We're talking about, marriage and dying to yourself and, all that, which does sound a little scary to some people.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, I got married for my problems to be fixed and the money to be more right. And I didn't get into this for dying
I want
myself.
one in my bank account.
And so if you find yourself there, we do offer a coaching program. It's myprogresscoach.com. What we do is we provide an assessment. Each couple takes an individual assessment, and then we do a one-on-one coaching call, and we go from there. So it's really, really great if you are engaged, if you are considering engagement, or if you're even early married. We're 10 years in, so we might not want to coach a marriage of 25 years, but we are really passionate about young people and premarital and early marriage.
Yeah, we're blessed to have some couples who are, a few exes ahead of us who are doing it, who walk with us, loves on us, generous with us in every aspect. And so we want to be able to do the same. And that's really what we're called to. And we really want to disciple people through marriage and in marriage, in the covenant.
Statistics. I can't say that word. I told you I'm not a
I said it.
Statistics are very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad. The amount of people that don't consider it or don't know it's a possibility. And what did we see? 35% of marriages that don't have premarital counseling end in divorce.
Right. Okay.
So, I mean, that's kind of a big number.
That's a big number.
And it's really important to know the person. And also, like, the assessment identifies your pain points, like what you feel each other should do in the home, how you were raised, how she was raised. It's really great. I'll be honest with you. We learned a lot about ourselves doing it.
And again, like, there's a lot of questions, like you said, you might be afraid to ask. A lot of questions that you may not think. I think, again, more for me, it's a lot of questions I didn't think to ask. Like, it didn't occur to me, a lot of things. And so we want to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. And that's really what we're here for. And really understanding what that sacrifice you're about to make at the altar, or you may have already made, what is it required to make that work, with that covenant really thrive, right? That's what we want. We want thriving couples, thriving families that are able to do what they are called to do. So
I like looking up stats. So 31% premarital counseling had a 31% lower chance of divorce.
Yeah.
Studies also have shown that the likelihood of a future divorce when having premarital counseling is around 50%.
Yeah. So I want to be clear, we're not counselors. We are coaches. I want to be very clear about that. But so whether it's with us or with someone else, we encourage you. It doesn't have to be with us. Find your people, find your person. If it's through your faith community, through your church, somewhere else, please we encourage you to find somebody. We want our call in being obedient is to see marriages that succeed and that thrive. And so find your people, find your person, and find someone who's going to challenge you, not just check the box so you can get married in their church. Let's be real.
That's so true.
Let's be real. We've seen that. I won't throw anybody under the bus, but we've seen a number of couples who that's been their experience, and it's not they're not serving. Unfortunately, some places are not serving and discipling people well in this area. And so we're filling the gap. We are the church. And no church is perfect, but we're going to do the best we can to fill that gap. And we believe God's called us to do that. So,
you just brought up something. Sorry,
all right.
Because me and my wife, we didn't inspect the fruit of a marriage before leading into some stuff in kind of analyzing what they were telling us. So, can we just dive deeper on just some things that people should just kind of very hone in and look at before being like, okay, we'll follow their path, so they don't end up getting bamboozled down the road, because people do end up getting bamboozled. And from what I've inspected on your fruit, me and my wife, we're good to go.
I'm honored and blessed you'd say that. Man, like, yeah, what's the path? Like, I think it requires a level of intimacy. I think what's been able to occur for you, Sony, is that obviously you came to our home and a couple times now, and have been here and been able to see, like, we don't got time for pretense. That's not who we are. So I think being able to see, obviously, be able to spend time with us in our church, our faith community, and be a part of that. I think this has to be a level of openness, right? A level of willingness to be, vulnerability is hot right now, but it's real. Like, be able to be vulnerable. So I think you're looking for someone who's a few X's ahead of you. Could be a pastor in your church. It could be someone else who's been married longer, and you're seeing their fruit. You're seeing their kids. I think it says, I'm gonna get the Bible verse wrong. Is it in 1 Peter where it talks about how do we know who can be a deacon or elder in the church? I think some of that standard is really important to really identify people of good character, people who exhibit wisdom and understanding and good judgment, and who have successful, thriving marriage. No marriage is perfect, right? Even perfect people who have great marriages have kids who go astray, right? And there's stories in the Bible that talk about that. So we don't want to look for the perfect people, because you're not going to find that. People who can really live in humility and dignity and are truly going after God. I think that's really the things you're looking for. And sit and pray with your spouse or your fiance that these are people, right? And God will lead you. God will lead you. That's yeah. If you want to add anything to that,
that's great.
Okay, thank you.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know we're going to close with an encouragement, but before we do that, I want you to pull up 1 Corinthians.
Done. I'm on time. See, I wasn't going to let that happen again where I wasn't ready.
Because I'm going to have you read this verse, and as he reads it, if you are dating, engaged, considering marriage, want to get married, this is the most commonly used verse in wedding planning. Right. Or wedding. Well,
you used to be wedding planning in the previous life,
so that came out in weddings, and a lot of people they just know the verse, but they don't really think into it and ask themselves, can I do this? Am I willing to do this? Am I willing to try? So as he reads it, listen with asking yourself, can I do some of the things that this is asking?
Yeah. So this is 1 Corinthians.
This is a truly dying to self.
1 Corinthians 13, verses 4-8. And I said this before, love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not envy. It is not boastful. It is not arrogant. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not irritable. Does not keep a record of wrongs. Love finds no joy in unrighteousness, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never ends, but as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. So that's 4-8.
That was good. The next encouragement is, consider if you are working yourself into a dream that maybe isn't for you, or if you are an entrepreneur that has been trying to do something and you're at your end. And I'm going to encourage you, talk to your spouse, talk to your partner, talk to someone in your life, and reevaluate that. Make sure your heart posture is in the right place. I also want to encourage you, if you are married and you do have a partner, to implement some sort of covering for them this week. Think of a way, be proactive. How can I love on it? Because that covering produces intimacy, which produces healing. So I just really want to encourage you in that. And then what else you got?
I mean, just going back to last week, here's a little bit of alliteration. There's pain in the pivot, right? You had to pivot out of dentistry. I've had to pivot my business a number of times, and now pivoting again to here we are. So, but there's also growth. That pain is usually can just be growing pains if it's done in partnership with your spouse, if it's done through Christ and with your eyes focused on Christ first. That pain is growing pains. And so it's been, for our other side of everything we've talked about so far in these first 2 episodes, it's been like growing by leaps and bounds. And those growing pains hurt, but when the growth starts to slow down a little bit, and you get and you really get the healing, right? Then you realize, oh wow, I'm a little stronger. Yep. I'm a little bigger. Right? If you think of like a child, I can take on more, right? I know more.
What looked like was I was a lot more confident.
There you go.
I could stand up for myself.
Yeah.
I was less of a people pleaser.
Yeah. You're a different person.
I'm a different person.
Different person.
I have more joy. I'm able to say no with a smile. When I would say no and be like, oh my God, they're going to hate me forever.
I tell you can say no and be kind, and people respect your boundaries. If they don't, then they're not your person anyway. So that's the beautiful thing. So thank you again, Sony, for jumping in and obviously doing this and prompting us to pull more out of what we got here. And so thanks for visiting. Listening, we're visiting on YouTube or wherever you're getting this podcast. Please check out the description, and if you want to bless us, PayPal, Cash App, etc., Venmo, we welcome that. We appreciate that. So many people have given their time and their talent to make this possible, and we're so grateful for all those who support. Check out myprogresscoach.com. Follow along at myprogresscoach across social media, and just spread the word. If this is blessing you, send it to someone else you know it can bless. And we really are grateful that you're tuning in, and we love you, and we could not love you if we didn't love you. So until next time.
My mind on you whenever. I keep my eyes on you forever. Man, we got